Welcome to this week's episode of Change Food Eats. I'm your host, Diane Hatz, and this week our guest is Mary Swander. Mary is the co-founder and executive director of AgArts, a nonprofit designed to imagine and promote healthy food systems through the arts. She is also the artistic director of Swander Women Productions, a theater company that tours plays about agriculture and the wider rural environment. Swander is an award-winning author of poetry, nonfiction, and drama, and is best known for her books, Driving the Body Back, Out of This World, and The Desert Pilgrim. Swander lives in an Amish one-room schoolhouse and raises sheep, goats, and a large organic garden. Mary Swander, welcome so much to Change Food Eats. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Diane?
I'm okay. You know, weather's starting to get colder. I hear you've had snow in Iowa.
Oh, yeah. Our October surprise.
So tell me, what are you eating today on Change Food Eats?
All right. So I grow 90% of my own food. So when you do that, then you have to preserve your food. So the biggest consideration is vegetables. So I am eating my dehydrated tomatoes today, and I'll show you how this works.
Yum.
Yeah. I actually taught a course on dehydrating vegetables a couple of weeks ago. So
now, do you use a dehydrator, or do you do it some natural kind of way?
Well, I have a big dehydrator, which I mostly have to use for tomatoes because they're so full of water.
Right.
But I also have it's a multi-use permaculture type building that is in my garden shed, and I have shelves on it, and I do like herbs and greens and stuff in there. It's insulated, and I just do it on sunny days and shut the door, and we're done. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
yum.
It's the best. Oh, it is. And these are absolutely delicious. And I have bags and bags of other vegetables. Like these are right here.
What's that?
These are Trombone Squash, which is a wonderful squash. It doesn't get bugs. It grows on a trellis, so it's up off the ground. Huh. Yeah, and
are they small?
Well, they are if you pick them small.
Well, that's true.
And they taste similar to zucchini when you pick them small. But if you let them go and grow, they turn into this delicious fall, like winter butternut squash. So I do both. I harvest some small, and then I make them into these chips, and you basically, come on, get out of there. You have this nice little chip that you can use with salsa or, things like that. Or I put them in.
So it's crunchy.
Yeah, that's the thing. You get a crunch to it, which is just great because most food preservation, you get mush,
right.
Canning.
Or like leather. It's like leather.
Yeah. And like canning, you lose 40% of the nutrients when you do that. And dehydrating, it's minimal nutrient loss. So it's actually much healthier to do this. It saves so much space because you don't have to drag around all those jars and everything. And you don't have to stand there over a hot stove pressure cooker,
right?
In August. Right. So I am the queen of the dehydrator, and that's what I'm eating today.
Yay. So let's get my question I'm asking everyone out of the way first. How can we create a food system where everyone can eat healthy food?
What we need to do is encourage people to grow their own food again. And I know that sounds simplistic, and people are going to say, how can you do that in the middle of New York City? You can grow something. And, when I've lived in cities without any space to garden, I grew sprouts and microgreens. And you can do that in the tiniest of space. And you don't have to grow everything. Just get yourself off of the food system grid, to some extent. But there have also been plans, like for New York City, of all the empty spaces. and how much food they can almost be, I've seen these plans, they can almost be self-sufficient if rooftops were used and empty lots and the surrounding areas. And there, you know, we're, especially in America, we're not very smart about space allocations at all. And so it can be done. You can't grow everything, but we could have a much more thoughtful system that would be cheaper for people. Your food would be healthier, the transport would be lower. And, you know, and basically that's what we had during World War I and during World War II with the Victory Gardens. We grew, I think it's like 40 to 50% of all of our vegetables in Victory Gardens during World War II. I mean, it's just remarkable what people can do when they put their mind to it. But part of it is the food preservation is what holds people back. Like, what do I do? You know, what do I do with 2 bushels of tomatoes that come in all at once? And how am I going to?
My thing, if we grow it publicly, because I don't know if you see my Plant Eat Share thing. If we do it and we grow it in public places, then anybody who needs it can eat it.
Exactly. And there are lots of people who are thinking in your direction. You know, last time we were together in Storm Lake, there was a farmer who was at an incredible, huge, like an acre garden. And he was opening it up to the public, and there are a lot of immigrants and refugees there, and they were all coming in and harvesting it. And he grew it, they harvested it. You know, it's kind of an old concept, but it needs to be revived.
Right. Well, I will say it is reviving. And the reason I started Plant Eat Share is I noticed around the world that these just random projects are popping up where people are doing different things. Because I'm trying to connect it and then to seed the idea so people can look and say, oh, here's 10 different ways to grow food in public spaces. I'm going to do a food forest, you know, or I'm just going to do a well-being garden that attracts bees. Like, there's all these different options. But anyway, let's talk about you. So you live in Iowa.
Yes,
what do you think about the food system in Iowa? Because, you know, a lot of people say Iowa, it's the breadbasket of the country, yet there is hunger and there's a lot of problems with food. So
that's a misnomer. It used to be the breadbasket of America when we had diversified farms and we grew, you know, our own livestock and fruits and vegetables. Now we're in a system where we're growing monocrops, corn and beans, and that doesn't feed us at all. In fact, most of our corn goes to corn syrup for people's soda pop, and most of our livestock are now hogs, which are in confinement, and then they go to meatpacking plants, which are shipped to China for the most part. So we have the capability to be the bread basket of the world. We just need to rethink what we're doing. And actually, on a hopeful note, when the pandemic hit, people realized the problems with the meatpacking plants. A lot of people don't understand. You just go to the grocery store, you know, you buy beef, you buy pork, and you think it's wonderful because you're in Iowa and you're getting Iowa, you know, raised stuff. You might be raised in Iowa, but it's raised in confinement. And so the meatpacking plants, you know, for a while there, until they were declared essential workers, so they made them go back into the plants while there was raging COVID.
Right.
They thought, oh, wow, now I'm beginning to see what's our food system is like. So I was one of the first people that saw that there was just a rush toward locally grown grass-fed beef and meat. And I was working with a reporter from the Des Moines Register, and I called him up and I'm like, Mark, I think there's a story here in locally raised, you know, beef at the least of it. And he tracked that all down. He's like, wow, Mary, this is really something that's going on. You know, so people need to be educated. Yeah, it costs a little bit more. I always tell people you're going to pay for it on one end or another with what your eating choices are. You can eat junk, and it can be cheap junk, and then you're going to have to pay for cancer treatment at the, you know, later. Or you can eat healthy food that's going to cost you a little bit more, and you're not going to have health problems.
Right. And what I tell people is we all need to cut back on the amount we eat. So just make it more of a, a celebration and have less but better quality.
And you can do things like, you buy better quality meat, but you can spread it out in your cooking. Like, don't use as much if you're, creating a dish as, you normally would. So.
Right. And we're not, we do understand that there are people who just can't afford to buy healthy meat at all. So I just want viewers to understand.
I get that. No, I totally get that. And, most of the farmers I know couldn't afford, to do it unless they grew it themselves. I actually have a really interesting vantage point because I live in the middle of the largest Amish settlement west of the Mississippi River. And
oh, wow.
So I basically live in an agricultural museum. So I see people doing the old methods of, growing their own hog and butchering it. And, they come to the door with a hunk of liver and they're like, do you want us to make liverwurst out of this for you? I'm like, yeah, that would be great.
Wow.
So I see it firsthand. I grew up seeing it that way, but then we lost it by the time we got into the 70s, 80s and onward.
Right. So you mentioned briefly about the meat packing plants and how COVID has brought to light what goes on there. I think more than it ever has. Like people really do bypass that part. But is there, do you have any other thoughts or anything else you've noticed about the pandemic and how it's affecting like people's ability to eat or the food supply?
Well, people are out of work. They don't have money. They've lost their jobs. I mean, it's just insane. And so we've had a huge rush on food pantries. And the same people that used to run the food pantries are now in line at the food pantries. So that's been really tough. And then, like my Amish neighbors have a nursery where they have seedlings, everything. And they said in the spring they were just absolutely swamped. Everybody's home. They're getting some sense of what the food situation is like, so they're planting a garden. I thought, okay, this is great, this is good. And the Amish were like, but Mary, they don't even know what they're doing. They're asking us these basic questions. I said, yeah, well, just let them. They got to experience this. So it's actually been a lot of fun in that way.
I hear seeds have just sold out.
Yeah. Oh no, that's the other thing. Mostly I save my own seeds, but I do have to buy some things. And I saw that I already order my seeds in January, but I saw that by March, all the standard things, even that you always can get more of, like green beans, were sold out of most seed catalogs. So they're having a boom.
Yeah. So let's get on to you. You're the founder of AgArts, which is a nonprofit that's designed to imagine and promote healthy food systems through the arts. Why do you think it's important to use art as a way to promote food and farming?
It's a good way to get into the subject when other ways of education or exploration of ideas might make people's eyes glaze over, for one thing. I've got a play called, I've got many plays about agricultural issues. And one is on immigrant farmers and the other is Map of My Kingdom, which is on farmland transition. And farmland transition is a huge, huge, huge topic in agriculture.
And what is that? Most people aren't going to know what that is.
Farmland transition is, okay, you own a farm, you're 65 years old, you may have 3 offspring, but they're now doctors and lawyers in the Twin Cities or, St. Louis or wherever, and they don't want to come back to the farm. Who are you going to pass it on to? How is that land going to be used? Are you going to sell out, to a outfit that's going to consolidate it with 10 other farms and turn it into industrial agriculture? Do you want to keep it a family farm and do a little bit more stewardship of the land? And this
is a big issue, right? Because The vast majority of farmers are older.
Huge. The baby boomers are retiring or want to retire. They want to turn it over. Sometimes you do have a sibling. You might have, and here's another scenario. You have 4 kids. One sibling has been there farming with you. You want to turn it over to him or her. And the other 3 siblings are like, yeah, but what about the money for us?
Right.
And so families start getting into real dramas with this. So we've been using this play. It was originally commissioned by Practical Farmers of Iowa to help farmers start a conversation about their transition. And it's on video now. We've actually have been using it at, we were predominantly playing it at major agricultural conferences in the last few years, but now they've gone online, but we have a great video. So we've been playing that online. And then I usually do a Q&A afterwards. And
so when you do this online, do you do it like people buy a ticket, or is it just like on YouTube and anybody can watch it?
No, this would be this. First of all, it's on my website. So you can just download.
And what's
your
website?
maryswander.com. And you could just download the video for $15 from my website, or you can buy a DVD and I'll send it to you. So at the conference, they just had it that we did a national community foundation conference, and there were executive directors from community foundations from all over the country there. So it was really slick. They had a setup where we just downloaded the video that they already had into the computer. And then I came on at the end of it on a Zoom link, and we had a discussion. So we're still doing the show. We did in 2019, we did 60 performances that entire year, all over the United States from coast to coast.
And this is Map of My Kingdom?
Map of My Kingdom and Vang, which is the play about immigrant farmers. And then I have another one. We even did a few performances of Farmscape, which is about the recent environmental problems in the farm landscape. And we were at Mayo Clinic. We were everywhere from Mayo Clinic to Nature Conservancy in Portland, Oregon, to the community center in Garden City, Iowa. And it's very interesting because it's totally different audiences. We were at the Idaho Wine Commission conference, and vintners, they have this issue too. They, often plant, go to great lengths to plant grapes and cultivate them. It's really labor intensive. And then now what am I going to do? It's 20 years later. How am I going to, continue this? And what apparatuses have I built into my business plan to keep going?
Right. So this is work that you do. Mary has a lot of companies and is doing a lot of stuff.
I do.
So this is under Swander Women Productions.
Yeah. And then AgArts is a nonprofit. And what we're doing there is we're doing artist residencies on farms. And that's very cool because most artist residencies, you just like go someplace and you hole up and you write your book and you don't interact with anybody. And that's fine. That's a good way to do it. But this, I wanted people, the artists especially, to help bridge the urban-rural divide. And I wanted them to go to the farms, get a way better understanding of all the complex issues that the farmers have, and they're unique and different. Every farm is different. It's in different location. The problems are different. And then reflect that some way or wrestle with that some way in their work. So we've had writers and painters and theater artists and dancers. I brought Irish musicians over from Ireland for a residency and a tour. And so it's really lively. Both the farmers and the artists are getting a lot out of it and enjoying it. And then,
how do these artists find you, and how do you choose them?
They basically word of mouth, and
You don't have like an open call or people
Yeah,
can't.
I'm gonna do that. But basically I've had so many artists wanting to do it and so many farmers wanting to do it and so little money that I've had to keep it pretty tight, but it's getting a lot better. And so, yeah, I'll be having an open call probably sometime after the pandemic is over. He's been a little constrained because I couldn't send him anywhere during the pandemic, but we worked it out because one farm is super isolated and you don't really have to interact with, you know, a whole town full of people or anything.
So if I'm an artist and I want to apply,
yeah,
and the pandemic is over,
there's an application on my website,
where
on the AgArts website, which is agarts.org.
Which is AgArts, ARTS.org. I was trying to get that out of you. So do you have plans, assuming the pandemic is under control in 2021, do you have any plans for AgArts and what you'll be doing specifically?
We started, we'll continue the residencies. I mean, it's really kind of cute. These farmers are approaching me and saying things like, I would really like a calypso artist. You know, this is like a farmer in Iowa. And I'm like, really? And they go, yeah, we just love that music. Could you find some, you know? And so I'm like, I can do.
That's great.
So I'm getting people, you know, with special requests. It's really fun. And yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I've just never heard of that. That's such a unique way to do a residency, is to let the farmers where they're going to stay say, I want this.
Right. Yeah, no, that's what they're saying to me. I want this. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I mean, some of them are just like, send me anybody. I love it. You know, we're out working in the field or the garden and we're hearing this Irish music, you know. And so the interaction between the farmers and the artists is key. And that has been a lot of fun. We also initiated some classes this year because of the pandemic, but they were very popular, and we'll continue to do that. Some online classes for everything from writing to botanical drawing to food preservation. And so we're looking at that this winter of what the lineup will be for.
So you go from artistic things like writing a play, let's say, to how to dehydrate your tomatoes. Like that. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. No, I've got a lot of practical skills in addition to, you know, cerebral stuff going on. And, and then we also started a podcast called AgArts in Horse and Buggy Land. And it's really fun and funny. It's a little bit of comic relief in this challenging era that we're in. And it's based in a fictitious town in the middle of the Amish settlement. So it has storytelling, local blues, jazz, old-time bluegrass music. It has jokes. I'm doing a whole thing at the upcoming thing about farm jokes. And, you know, it's full of folklore and people that I've got a little following already. Just, you know, we just launched at the end of August. And
where does one go to listen to this?
Any place that you get your podcasts, you know.
Really?
Yeah. It's out there. Spotify, Apple, whatever. You can also get on either AgArts website or maryswander.com website. That's actually the best connection. And so, it's been great. And
what's it called again?
AgArts, AgArts, from Horse and Buggy Land, which is Amish land. And
I didn't realize it was that. I have to go listen to it. Not that I wouldn't have if you were just interviewing people, but this sounds really unique and interesting.
Oh, it's so much fun. And we've done some interviews. That's been a little hard in the pandemic, but we did some outside. Like I did this wonderful interview of a 86-year-old Mennonite who'd been a conscientious objector during the Korean War. And it is an oral history beyond belief of what happened to him. You know, conscientious objectors were not real popular then, and kind of the alternative service that they did, and then his service with all around the world with the Mennonite community. And then he worked for John Deere selling tractors during the day, farmed at night. And then he was such a good salesman that John Deere sent him all around the world. Like he gave him like bonus incentive rewards. So people think small town Iowa, these people are a bunch of bumps and they never do anything or go anywhere.
Yeah,
and
it's not true.
It's a very, very interesting place.
We'll be right back with more from Mary Swander. But right now, let's check in with our health and wellness expert, Ebeth Johnson. Ebeth?
Hello, everyone. It's Ebeth Johnson, your mindful eating coach. Today, I want to talk to you about plating because whether it's holiday season or just a regular day, eating is so much more pleasurable when what we are enjoying is plated beautifully. So how can we make our plates more beautiful, more appetizing? So I have a couple of quick tips for you. The first one is always think about color. And this really starts before you begin your plating. This begins as you are planning your menu and shopping for your ingredients. Think about what ingredients, what vegetables, what fruits can I add to increase the number of colors that are visible on my plate? So that is the first place to start, is thinking about color and always trying to put as many colors on your plate as possible. Not only is it beautiful to look at, but the more colors on your plate, the more nutrients in your body and the better you are going to feel. Okay, so that's number one. Be careful, mindful about color. Number two, don't crowd your plate. A lot of times you see people will fill up their plate all the way to the edge. What's really nice is to leave a little negative space. So in a place like this, a plate like this, we might only fill up this area here and leave all this white negative space and of course all the space around. That gives whatever is on your plate some breathing room to look beautiful and to not be crowded on the plate. And my final and third tip is to think about your plate in terms of thirds. You're going to kind of divide your plate up into thirds, and you always are going to serve someone with the most prominent, the most important part of your dish, the sort of main part of your dish, facing that person. So if you're looking at a plate, you're looking at it, like I'm looking at this plate now. This is going to be 12 o'clock, 3, 6, and 9, right? So we would put our main over here by the 6, and maybe we would put our veggies over here and our starch over here. Now in my world, of course, you might fill up half of your plate with veggies and a little bit with your protein, but essentially you're thinking about the rule of thirds. It's the same with photography, breaking your plate up into thirds to create visual interest on the plate. So those are my really quick tips. Think about color, don't crowd the plate, and divide your plate into thirds. If you put these tips together, you will surely have a beautiful plate for the holiday season and every day. I'll see you next time. Until then, I am sending you love and light and deliciousness. Talk to you next time.
Thanks so much, Ebeth. And now let's get back to my conversation with Mary Swander. So on top of Swander Women Productions and AgArts, you are or were the Poet Laureate of Iowa, and you're a poet. So tell us about that. How did you get into writing poetry and that type of thing?
By accident. I wanted to be a writer. Actually, I wanted to be a children's book writer. And I was just born into the wrong era for that. So I go to college, I go to Georgetown University, I take all my intense requirements, and then I then I went into my advisor and I'm going to go, okay, now I want to be a writer, so sign me up for a writing class. And he's like, Ms. Swander, we don't have writing classes here. Like basically he gave me the idea, if I wanted to be a writer, to get a beret and a cigarette holder and go to Paris. And and I was like, what about this guy's in theater? You've got courses in that. This guy's painting. But they didn't have any writing course. So he goes, oh well, we got one course. I said, well, what is it? He said, poetry. Can you write poetry? I said, give me a chance. And he goes, not so fast. you have to have 10 poems and you have to be selected for this class. I said, oh, great. When's the, deadline? He said, tomorrow morning at 8:00.
Oh my God.
So I was up all night hunting and pecking, right? I wrote like really 10 horrible poems. I don't even know how I got into that class, but I did. And then the teacher came in and the first day, and he had everybody's poem all squished together on one little mimeograph sheet. You remember those that were like,
oh yeah,
things to get high on. And he goes, we're going to vote for the best. We're going to vote for the worst poem, not the best, the worst poem. And that was my first poetry award. And
congratulations.
So, yeah. And so I just worked my ass off. I was like, I don't want any more awards here. And by the end of the semester, it was kind of remarkable. I was publishing poetry in like reputable literary magazines.
I'm just in awe because my master's is in creative writing, and as part of it, I had to do a poetry course, and I saw like it's an art. I don't know if people who haven't tried it don't understand how hard it is.
No, it was really intense. So what I did, Georgetown had this beautiful new library at that time, and they had this little booth where you could like go in there and listen to, at that time we had like 33 LPs, and they had this great modern library of poets all on records. And so I went in there and I put on the headphones and I listened to Elizabeth Bishop and T.S. Eliot and William Carlos Williams, just reading their poems. I was just like, okay, I got to just suck this in and get this. And so I went in there about an hour a day for that whole semester and just listened to poetry. And I started to get the rhythm of it. I started to understand the use of metaphor and figures of speech. And, it was really one of the best periods of my writing career. So then I ended up back home going to the writer's workshop and wrote poetry, but I also write drama and nonfiction. And I have a new nonfiction book coming out.
We're getting to that.
Getting to that?
Oh, no, we're there. I wanted to because there's so much you're doing, and I know you have this. When is the book coming out? And so why don't we start with what's the book called and what is it about?
Okay, the book is called The Maverick MD, and it's Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez and his fight for a new cancer treatment. And Nicholas Gonzalez was a Ivy League educated person of color who grew up in New York City, and he was in medical school. At first, he was a journalist, a very accomplished journalist, and he was pushed into medical school by Linus Pauling, who he had interviewed. And Linus Pauling said, "Where'd you go to medical school, man?" Gonzalez was then working for Time Inc. And he goes, I didn't go to medical school. And he said, well, you're asking more sophisticated questions than my fellow Nobel laureates. So you need to
Oh my God.
Yeah. He was a brilliant man, and you need to go to medical school. So he went to medical school. He was in Sloan Kettering. He thought he was going to have a life of research. And his father got cancer and died. So he stood there by his bedside and made that vow, I'm going to find the cure for cancer. Now, this is the most interesting part of this, Diane.
Now, can I ask what year, about what year?
Oh, so this was in the 70s.
Okay.
And, yeah. And I think he was born in 48.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is the most interesting thing of the whole deal to me, because when he was a journalist, he read like a book a day, and he was in love with ecology. And he found the work of Sir Albert Howard. He found the work of Weston Price. He found the work of René Dubos. And he started to understand that we were a whole ecology. As an undergraduate, he actually went to Cornell to agricultural school for a while, but then he got turned off by the industrial agricultural emphasis. He went back to Brown University and became an English major. And so he could work on both sides of his brain. Then he became a journalist. But he saw how food, health, and humans were all interconnected. which is what we're trying to get across in any, sustainable agriculture or healthy food movement. So, and that was kind of early, that he got that, and most people. So he went to medical school, and, he thought he was going to have a very traditional path. And by a fluke, he met Dr. William Kelly, who was a dentist who cured himself of, in all probability, was stage 4 pancreatic cancer through a nutritional program.
Wow.
So while Gonzalez was in medical school, he was allowed to do like a research project on Kelly. And Kelly was in Texas. And so Gonzalez went down there and went through like 10,000 files. This guy was a dentist, but then people in town start sending him people with cancer because they're like, we can't help him. Maybe you can. And so, yeah. And, of course, he had all sorts of trouble. They threw him in jail at one point and everything else for practicing medicine without a license. And so Gonzalez goes down there and does a intense, complete research project. It went on for several years. And then he went through his own internships and all of that. Finally found his way back to New York and set up a practice in New York City. And he saw cancer patients and other people with really difficult to treat degenerative diseases like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and so forth. And then what he wanted most of all in the entire world was to put the program to a test. And he wanted a clinical trial. And he did have a pilot study. And it's really complicated because he wasn't attached to any university. He was like what they call a lone wolf practitioner out there, and he had a private practice, and then he was trying to research. So anyway, he got the funding. He had a really successful pilot study. And then he had a debacle of a clinical trial that went on for 10 years. And it was just every single step of the way he got pushed back and from the conventional medical model. And then he died suddenly in 2015. And you got to read the book to find out what happened to him. So
there's something called the Gonzales Protocol, correct?
Yeah, right.
Now, what is this like?
The protocol is brilliant because what it is, it's food and nutrition and some detoxification techniques. But it isn't, what is brilliant about it is he didn't just prescribe one diet to everybody, which is what people who are in alternative medicine tend to do. Oh, this vegetarian diet, it cured me, so it's going to cure everybody. He was smart enough, and he knew this from Kelly, that they had worked out 12 different diets, and what he said was 99 variations. And it's a lot like Ayurvedic, where you have a metabolic body type. And so it is the quintessential food is medicine program. So you have to know what your body type is and then be on a very specific diet for that type. And then they used other supplements that were specific to that body type. And then they used pancreatic enzymes to arrest the cancer. And he researched the enzymes, and they're very, very, very tricky to get right. And the processing has to be right. And so every step of the way, he was just busting his butt to get this protocol tested, verified. He really wanted this to be something the public could access.
So do people need to read the book to see where we're at with that now?
Yeah. And
everyone, you're not going to know if you can use the protocol unless you buy Mary's book.
That's right. Well, you can't do it yourself. That's for sure.
Right.
It's not like, a do-it-yourself self-help at all. It's a story of the science behind this program and the man that discovered it. But it's happening.
So people have carried on his work, like his protocol.
He had a partner. Okay. She's now down in Austin, Texas, carrying it on. And then his wife is working on some educational seminars around it. And so, but, you know, it was basically when he dropped over dead, it was in danger of just being lost.
We can tell you're a farmer and you live in farmland. When he dropped dead.
That's right. I mean, we were all just really, really anxious about what was going to happen to that program. So, yeah.
So anyway, is the book available now?
In November 23rd, and it's in pre-order phase right now, which is newspringpress.com. You can put in your pre-order, and then November 23rd, you can get on Amazon or whatever and buy the book, The Maverick MD. It reads like a thriller.
I'm sure it does. Is there any poetry? Any Mary Swander poetry in the book?
It's Mary Swander. Beautiful prose is what is in that book. Everybody that's read it is just like, oh my God, it's so well written. It's like
that's great.
It brings this protocol to life, and it's the only book really that allows the layperson to access the material, the science,
right.
Right. Thing. And then it brings the man to life. His fascinating character.
So would you consider him a pioneer in the whole food as medicine movement?
Totally. He actually, with his protocol, he didn't consider himself a alternative anything. Like a lot of people say, oh, he's an integrative or he's a nutritional, right. Or, functional medicine, blah, blah, blah. And he considered he had his own program, his own theory, and really he didn't go down these paths where, this is cool, like magnets are cool, this week, and or any of those fad kind of things. He had his program, he stuck to it, he made adjustments to it, but he found something that worked. You self-administer this program, so a lot of people aren't compliant, so it didn't always work.
Right.
But the people, who put their head down and really did it religiously had great results most of the time.
And I forgot, because I am very, very anal on terminology, because a lot of people don't know the terms we use. How would you define food as medicine? What is that movement? What is it about?
Food as medicine, it goes all the way back to Hippocrates. Let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. And it basically means we are humans and stay alive, because we have good nutrition. And poor nutrition is going to cause all sorts of illness. And our conventional medical model has a lot to be said for it. I mean, if I broke my arm, I certainly wouldn't be going to an herbalist, to have it set or something like that. You got to use your sense. But the history of the whole thing was that there was this, ancient concept, and it goes back to metabolic types, that certain humans need certain foods to be healthy. For example, the Inuit in the Arctic, they eat, traditionally they eat meat and blubber and no vegetables whatsoever. And people think, oh, no, how could they live on that? And they're actually very healthy. When they started having diabetes and a million problems is when they started eating our SAD, our standard American diet. And so.
And what is our standard American diet?
Hamburgers, French fries,
Coke. Coca-Cola.
Diet Coke. I don't know. That's one I just don't understand. I don't even think it tastes good. And, additives and preservatives and white things, white flour, white sugar.
Which means over-processed for anyone who doesn't really know stuff about food.
Right. And so that happened. Actually, it's fascinating. My mother's family came from it's a little peninsula on the west coast of Ireland, and they intermarried with people in Inishbofin Island, which is a tiny little island. And there were, at its peak, there were like 300 people living there. And the government, and especially the Brits on the mainland, were just like, oh, these people, they can't be healthy. They're stuck out there on this island. We got to bring them in. And they kept trying that and trying. They're still trying it. And so in around 1890, they sent an MD doctor out there. They said, you write up a report about these Baffin people and all their illnesses. So he got out there. And in those days, it was hard to get out there. It wasn't like now.
Right.
They have a beautiful ferry going twice a day. He got out there and he was like, wait a second here. The diet is fish, potatoes, a little bit of greens, not much, like a little bit of cabbage, not much, many vegetables, some milk, a little bit of mutton on celebratory days, Christmas, stuff like that, and seaweed. And he was like, in our concept, that's a terrible diet. And these people, there is no cancer, there is no heart disease, there is no autoimmune disease, there's no tooth decay.
Wow.
And the biggest problem I see with these people, there's no mental illness, there's no alcoholism. And the biggest problem I see, these people they're a fishing community, they get the fish hooks caught in their fingers.
Oh, I've had that happen. That is so ugly.
It really is. But if that's your biggest problem,
right.
I think you're doing pretty well. And,
right.
They have puncture wounds. And that is the way the world used to work in isolated communities where humans had adapted to the food of their environment. So that's what the Gonzales Protocol is based on. It's like, what is your genetics and how does that work? So I walked, I was a patient of his. The first day I walked into his office, he actually meets you in the waiting room, and he had this long walk back to his office, and he said, you got to start eating more meat. He said, this is crazy. You got to eat meat, fish, potatoes. And he had done all these tests, and, basically I've got that same metabolism of someone from a pretty northern ancestry whose ancestors grew up eating meat, fish, potatoes, cabbage, and seaweed.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And, and I'd been to all these other alternative doctors like, you're going to be on a vegetarian diet. It was killing me. And because that's what they do. They're like, you're too acid. You got to be on a vegetarian diet. And what it turned out was I was way, way, way too alkaline. So you can, and this is a concept for people. Not every sick person is acid. You can also be too alkaline. And that is one of the real genius parts of the Gonzales Protocol. So
yeah, I don't know if that's too much to get into about acid and alkaline.
Yeah,
to try to explain to people.
It's basically balancing your pH in your system.
Right.
And you can save that for another day.
So your living testimony, I mean, do you want to talk about that at all? I mean,
Yeah, I went into him. I had been in a bad car accident as a kid. So I I was full of injuries from that, and it crashed my immune system. And then I got a vaccine shot that blew away my system even more. And then what got me to him was I got terrible fibroid tumors, and I'm hyper allergic sensitive to any kind of anesthetic. I would have had a hysterectomy if I could have, and I couldn't because it was life threatening. So I was like desperate to find something. And a friend came over one day, and she was a scientist, and she said, I got a bunch of scientist friends, and they've all had breast cancer and then reoccurrences, and they sat down and did a search for there has to be another way to treat this, because they'd all had surgery, chemo, radiation, and they wanted a really scientific method. Not there's a lot of kooky weird stuff that doesn't work.
Well, that's the problem, like knowing what really works and what sort of faddish or snake oil.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's really hard territory to go down. And so they did this whole study and, put their research skills to work and found him. And I mean, one woman had her cancer had metastasized to her brain, and he cleared that all out of her brain.
Wow.
And yeah, she's still alive. And I interviewed one patient and after another that, you know, they had stage 4 ovarian cancer, stage 3 liver cancer, you know, just really grim stuff that 20, 30 years later, they're still alive. And so, as I say, I think, you know, it's one of the safest bets out there. No, it doesn't cure everybody, but it is scientifically based, and it's not, you know, a quack thing, although lots of people would want to make it into a quack cure, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I also think because it's not just taking one pill a day, that you have to actually do what you're told to do.
Oh no, it's intense. It's intense.
Yeah.
And I did it all by myself, but most people have like a support person, their partner or their mother. There are a lot of mothers who enter into the picture of
Right.
this. And just, you know, like there was one gentleman that I interviewed, and he had stage 4 something, and he'd, you know, made out his will, put his affairs in order, and his mother said, you know, there's got to be something else. And so she found Dr. Gonzalez. They went out there, came back, and she was just like, this is going to work. And so there's a lot of things to do in the day with the program. She just kept him right on the beam, and, you know, and he's still alive. So
Wow.
it takes a lot of energy. It's not just like taking a pill or going in and sitting in the lazy boy chair and watching TV and having your chemotherapy. You know, and I've gone through that with a lot of family members, and even that is not easy because you get all those side effects and just this terrible stuff. But our mindset is that's the way you do it, you know, and this is like really different for people. So I'd already been through so many different, you know, methods, and I tried so many things. I was just like, oh, I don't, you know, if somebody said this is going to help you, they could we're going to put you up against the wall and throw darts at you, I'd say, great, do it, you know.
Right.
Right.
No,
you know,
I'm with you on that. Yeah.
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 So what's the name of the book again?
The Maverick MD. And
The
it's
Maverick MD.
MD. And it's the New Spring Press. And they've got it on their website. You can get it directly through them. And then it'll be hooked to Amazon and so forth coming up really soon.
After November 23rd.
23rd, yeah.
Okay, great. So is there anything else you'd like to share with us? I don't know if I've covered all the 20 million things you do.
I think you did a great job of prepping. I had a friend who called me the other night, and she's like, she's helping me write a grant. She's like, you're just like a moving target. There's so many things that are going on in and out and in and out. And I'm like, yeah. And she said, does anybody know all the things you're doing? And I said, only my accountant. She's the one that keeps it all. That keeps it all divided into separate categories. But
I think because I have different things that I'm doing. I think that we're going to be the new normal. We're ahead of the curve right now, but I think the days of one job are over.
No. And I had that one job. I taught at Iowa State University for 30 years. I was a distinguished professor, so I know how that goes. But no, I think, and I retired a little bit early, so because I really wanted to make a difference in the world and do something, you know, about food awareness. And so basically everything I'm doing right now dovetails into that.
Well, fantastic.
Yeah.
So Mary, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for this great interview.
I hope to see you in 2021.
That's right.
Thanks so much for joining us today on Change Food Eats. If you want to check out any of the shows that we've done, please feel free to go to our YouTube channel. Just search for Change Food. Also, you can find all our episodes on the Change Food website, changefood.org. This is Diane Hatz. Thank you, and eat well.